We've all been there. You study for hours, you feel like you've got it down, but then you get to the test and your mind just goes completely blank. Ugh, why does that happen? Well, today we're going to dig into the science of why our brains forget things so easily, and more importantly, the kind of weird tricks that actually make learning stick.
I mean, if you're not in your head right now, you are definitely not alone. It's one of the most frustrating feelings ever, right? To put in all that work, to feel so sure you know the material, and then just nothing. But here's the thing. It's not because you're a bad student. It's because of a really common mix-up our brains make all the time.
So, here's the absolute core of the problem. Our brains are constantly confusing recognition with recall. Recognition, well, that's the easy part. It's like seeing a map and going, yep, that's the USA. But recall? That's hard. That's having to draw that same map from scratch, totally from memory. And here's the kicker. Exams don't test what you recognize. They test what you can recall. That gap right there is where so much learning falls apart.
And that gap leads us straight into a pretty dangerous mental trap, one that explains why our confidence can be such a terrible, terrible guide for what we've actually learned. It's something called the illusion of knowing.
I mean, listen to this. This is a real quote from a student talking about their 7th grade biology exam. They did what we all do, right? They reread the chapter, they looked over their notes, and it felt super productive. The result? A C. This is just a perfect and kind of painful example of falling right into that illusion.
See, our brains are basically wired for this little trick. When we reread our notes, the words look familiar, and our brain sends a signal like, oh yeah, I know this. But that cozy feeling of familiarity, it is not the same thing as actually mastering the material. Psychologists have a name for it, the illusion of competence. It's a bias that makes us just awful at judging what we really know. And this isn't just a feeling, we've got the data to prove it. Check out this chart from a study. Students were shown pairs of words and had to guess how well they'd remember them later. Now, just focus on that bar on the far left. For words that were totally unrelated, they predicted they'd recall about 33% of them. Their confidence was surprisingly high, even for stuff that had no connection. But now, look at what actually happened. For those same unrelated words, their actual recall was only 22%. That is way lower than the 33% they predicted. That gap between what they thought they'd know and what they actually knew, that is the illusion of competence in action. We are just consistently overconfident.
Okay, so why? Why does this keep happening? How can the study methods that feel the most comfortable and productive turn out to be the absolute worst for us? To answer that, we got to look at how our brains are, well, literally built to forget things.
Problem is really in how we study. On the left, you see all the comfy, passive stuff. Rereading, highlighting, watching videos. It feels like you're doing something, but it takes almost no real mental effort. Then, on the right, you have the active methods. These feel hard, maybe even a little painful, because they force your brain to actually struggle and pull out information. And that struggle, that's the whole secret. And you're not going to believe this. A staggering 84% of students say that their main study strategy is just rereading. 84%. That means the vast majority of us are betting on a method that science shows is one of the least effective for remembering anything long-term. We're choosing comfort over actually learning.
And this right here, this is learning's greatest enemy. Way back in the 1880s, a guy named Hermann Ebbinghaus discovered this forgetting curve. It shows that if you don't actively try to remember something, your memory for it just falls off a cliff. Within a single hour, poof, nearly half of it can be gone. This isn't a bug, it's our brain's factory setting.
So, if our brains are basically built to forget, just like that curve showed, how in the world do we fight back? Well, the answer is completely backward from what you'd expect. We don't make learning easier. We actually have to lean in and embrace the difficulty. Okay, so if the easy path is just a trap that leads straight to forgetting, what's the alternative? What are we supposed to do to fight our brain's natural urge to just let information fade away? Well, meet the hero of our story, a powerful concept called desirable difficulty. It's the big idea that learning tasks that feel slow and effortful and kind of a pain in the moment are the very things that create strong, deep, long-lasting memories. And this is where we have to totally flip our thinking. You know that feeling of mental strain when you're trying to remember something? That's not a sign you're failing. According to the psychologist Robert Bjork, who came up with this idea, that struggle is the learning. It's the feeling of your brain actually building stronger connections.
Okay, this all sounds great in theory,
But what does it actually look like when you're studying? How do you do it? Let's break down some science-backed strategies you can literally start using tonight to make this whole desirable difficulty thing work for you.
We're going to zoom in on 3 of the absolute heavy hitters: retrieval practice, spaced repetition, and something called self-explanation.
First up, retrieval practice. This is super simple. It's the act of pulling information out of your brain instead of just trying to passively shove it in. Every single time you force yourself to recall a fact, you make that memory stronger. It's why flashcards and practice tests blow rereading out of the water.
Second, we've got spaced repetition. This one is the direct counterattack to that nasty forgetting curve we saw earlier. Instead of cramming for 5 hours straight, you review the material over longer and longer intervals, like after a day, then a few days, then a week. Every time you review, you stop the forgetting process in its tracks and lock the info in deeper.
And third is self-explanation, which is sometimes called the Feynman technique. This is my personal favorite. You just try to teach the concept to someone else. Or hey, even just explain it to your wall, out loud. This simple act makes you organize your thoughts, and it instantly shows you where the holes in your understanding are. Because if you can't explain it simply, you don't really know it.
And look, this isn't just some nice idea. The data here is incredible. A huge meta-analysis, which is a study of a bunch of other studies, found a really powerful effect. This number, G equals 0.55, what does that mean? Well, in simple terms, it's a measure of the impact, and anything over 0.5 is considered a really big deal. So this technique gives you a real, measurable boost.
All right, let's bring this all together and make it super practical. We've talked about the problem, that sneaky illusion of knowing, and we found the solution, embracing desirable difficulty. So here's your action plan.
Your new and improved study habit really just boils down to these 3 steps. 1, always test yourself. Stop rereading, start recalling. 2, space it out. Spread your review over days, not one frantic night. And 3, explain it out loud. Remember, if you can't teach it, you don't really know it. It's time to trade in those easy, passive habits for the effortful ones that actually work.
In the end, it all comes down to this. The path to really truly learning something isn't about finding the easiest way. It's about embracing the right kind of struggle. So the question I'll leave you with is, are you willing to make learning feel a little harder now so that it sticks with you for good? The choice, and of course the results, are all yours.